This is another NJThrives small business webinar. If you haven't been here before, these are basically weekly webinars that are created for New Jersey small business owners to start, grow, and thrive. I'm your host, Christian Pichardo, NJSBDC specialty consultant and CEO at nilumomedia.com. As for the NJSBDC, we're America's New Jersey Small Business Development Centers Network. And we're a statewide program powered by the SBA and partners. We help small businesses in New Jersey with three things: no-cost small business consulting, training and events like this one starting at $0, and exclusive small business resources only available to our clients. That said, our agenda for today, we're going to go over some news headlines. We'll get into the webinar, and we'll end with some Q&A. However, depending on what our speaker will tell you in a little bit, you could drop in questions in the Q&A throughout. So, small business headlines for the week. So some of these, actually all of these, are basically the same as last week. There's not much new from last week to this week. So we'll jump into this one. So we're celebrating our 45-year anniversary this year. We started in 1977 in New Jersey, and we've had a ton of impact that we're very proud of. And basically, what you should note from here is that we're going to have some exciting things happening later on in the year. So just be mindful. We're going to let you know. We'll send you an email, or we'll announce it here on one of these NJThrives webinars. But we are thinking of, this is a sneak peek, block parties. I'm not going to tell you any more details, but that's that. Next here is the Small Business Improvement Grant. So last week this said they were accepting applications, but it seems that now you're receiving high volume applications, and you just have to be patient. So now you know. And then last one here, this is not so much for business owners to take action on just yet, but the NJEDA is basically announcing grants to help small business lenders be able to support you guys. So we'll see when this comes out. Again, I'll keep you guys updated, but this just means that more funding is coming. So that's basically it. It was pretty much the same as last week. So before we start the webinar, things to keep in mind. Please type questions into the Q&A box. You're able to ask anonymously as well. And number two is please complete a 3-minute survey. You'll get redirected after the webinar ends. And once you complete that, you'll get access to the webinar resources. So the recording and also the presentation and any other materials the speaker might have for you. But now, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Gina and Jamie for part 2 of Entrepreneur's Guide to Success on Zoom. And you're going to show us today how to conduct business on Zoom. So how you guys doing?
All right. Hi, nice to see everyone today. Let me go ahead and share my screen with you all. Oh, there we go. So, excuse me, welcome to the second session in our series about conducting business on Zoom, or, really any other video meeting platform. So today I'm using the word Zoom, but whether you conduct your meetings on, Teams or WebEx, any of those, it's pretty universal information that I'm sharing with you today. My name is Gina Bloom, and of course, today joining me is author and professional organizer Jamie Novak. I see here in the chat box Thank you to Chris and the SBDC for getting us going today. And I see he asked in the chat box what businesses you are in. And to Jamie's delight, I hope you'll see there's some authors that are joining us today. I'd love to hear also where you are joining us from. Are you just in New Jersey? Or are you, outside of New Jersey? For those of you in New Jersey, we had a wonderful spring-like day yesterday, and today it is 33 degrees here where I am in central New Jersey. So that is the weather. And as Chris mentioned, of course, we want to answer all of your questions. So please go ahead and put them in the Q&A, and we will get to them at the end of today's program. So we have South Jersey here, Freehold, right down the street from me. Gary, I'm in Monroe Township, so I'm right down the road from you. South Florida, that sounds great right now. we're envious of you. Hudson County, all right. Brooklyn is here, that's great. Texas, where in Texas, Marcia? I used to live in Austin, and we certainly miss it. North Jersey, South Jersey, we've got everybody. Atlanta, Georgia, all right. Morristown and Delray Beach, all right. Milburn, Dallas, Fort Worth, all right. Okay, so today's agenda, we are going to open with a review of last week. So no worries if you weren't able to join us for our first in the series. We'll do a quick review, and then we're all offenders and victims. We'll look at best practices for both meeting hosts and participants to ensure productivity. You'll learn about using tools and techniques for making our meetings more human. Is there such a thing as Zoom fatigue? So we'll talk about physical props, and then also Zoom's digital features to really engage your audience and your clients, or if you're employees. Of course, again, we want to answer all of your questions, so please go ahead and put them in the Q&A throughout our time together. Okay, and I'm looking at the rest here. We have Haddonfield, Lawrenceville. This is great. Another one from Delray Beach. All right, maybe you all can get together. That's great. Okay, so for those of you that joined us last week, and all of you joining for the first time today, I would like to know which of these helps create a first impression. So I have a poll here. Let me go ahead and set this up for you. So please take a moment to answer. What helps create a first impression? Using your camera, your appearance, a smile, or all of the above? I'm an easy grader, so no worries here. All right, we'll give it another minute. Okay, let's see. Okay. We almost have everyone here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll, and let's see what you all thought. All right, for almost 90% of you that answered all of the above, you are correct. You all get a gold star here. So we'll go ahead and just do a quick review of last week of, what, the components of a great first impression. Okay, so if you're with us last week, we talked about, what is charisma? It's that combination of your energy and your personality that really conveys trust. And it's like that virtual handshake that I'm extending to you through my camera lens. And why do first impressions matter, right? For a majority of us now, let's say you are conducting business virtually and not in person. You only have 7 seconds to make that great first impression. So, and it's really based on the visual, right? Studies have shown, recall that it doesn't matter, what you're saying, the verbal or how you're saying it. It's that image that you're projecting, and of course, how you show up, right? Can make or break your career or, business with new clients. If you're not really conveying that trust through the screen. So what is the number one thing that you can do to make a great first impression? It's very easy. All you have to do is turn on your camera when you're in meetings. So, you want to, use the most of that rectangle of space on the screen. And, in addition to that, we talked about assets. It's that using what you have, it's free, it's what you have to succeed on Zoom. So let's go ahead and review what are your assets. It's these components are your appearance, of course, staging and styling, and bringing the energy and emotion, that and knowing how to use the technology, right, that you have, so you gain that trust of whether it's your new clients, trying to develop new business, if it's working with your other employees, or even in casual situations. You want to always project a professional image. So, when it comes to appearance, what you wear does matter, right? If you're in a meeting, you don't want to show up, in a sweatshirt, right? Have a consistent look and feel with your wardrobe. And it also helps you stand out. If you're in a larger meeting setting, it helps you stand out, to the rest of the group there. So recall here, we talked about using, putting your logo and your brand to work. Here are some examples for, we have a gentleman here. He runs a pest control business. It's eco-friendly. He chose a great color, the green shirt. We always associate, right, green with environmentally friendly. Here you see a baker. The pink conveys, it's almost like frosting, and you see all her tasty treats here in her retail location. And then finally, we have a pet groomer, and what a lovely dog he has with him, right? You'd bring your pet to him, right? So, it's really a combination of, choosing the right apparel. For example, let's say you don't have, or if you do have logoed apparel, but if you don't, general rule of thumb is to stick to solid colors, and you want to contrast with your background. I happen to love stripes. Most of my apparel I have in my wardrobe has stripes on it. However, on the camera, it creates a moire pattern, the zigzags. It gets a little confusing and distracting to look at as a participant. So I tend to stick to solids. You can have a Zoom wardrobe. Let's say you have a few apparel pieces that you keep reserved just for Zoom, and you're set there. So Jamie, she uses staging and styling to help promote her business and her brand. So Jamie, why don't you tell us how you stage your business?
I'd love to, Gina. And you make such a great point, the contrasting colors. So what you'll notice is in my very sad before photo that I thought at the time looked great. But now, of course, when you compare side by side, I much prefer the after. And I was able to achieve this just by shopping my home. So I didn't go and buy anything new. As a professional organizer, author, and virtual presenter, I'm a big fan of suggesting not only take my own advice, but for everyone else to just shop from home. So I relocated some wall art, and that's brown and sort of simple, but also fresh, sort of to me, signifying a fresh start, a new beginning. So some fun flowers, especially this was great over the winter when I was longing for the spring that I hope is coming. So that's behind me in a brown shade, and then contrasting this sort of an aqua or turquoise color that I think picks up on my book. So this is my 5th best-selling book, and I leave it right here as sort of a subliminal message, like buy my book, buy my book. So it's not right up front in your face, but it does allow me to, sort of speak to it by pointing. I did also bring in an orchid, and again, that theme of simplicity and keeping everything just calm, relaxed. I know we have some participants from a spa setting, and so you probably also relate to the orchid as being relaxing and welcoming home. So that's a little bit about the background. So it's contrasting, and without that piece of wall art behind me, I think I tended to fade into the background. But now I kind of really, I hope I pop. So I tend to, as Gina said, avoid the stripes and the polka dots, checkered patterns that are just exactly going to make the participants dizzy. You may have experienced that, where even a men's tie that has a pattern, it almost feels like it's a little wavy, and it's very distracting. So solid colors, I tried to bring in my brand colors. I don't have logoed apparel. And then anytime I can bring in the season. So Gina, you know, you've been on Zooms with me. I'll bring in for the winter different seasonal aspects and put them right on the table behind me, just to really change it up. And I love shopping from home to find all of these items. So you probably don't have to buy anything new. So that's my before and after.
Thank you for sharing that, Jamie. Yeah, and great points we mentioned last week. Use what you have. You know, you're not in every room of your home, right? Grab, you know, like last week we talked about having proper lighting. I grabbed a lamp from another room that I wasn't using. You know, Jamie made a great point of the seasonal aspect, and even in what the artwork she chose, it brings out her emotion and how she feels. And that goes as well with your apparel. You know, wear things that make you feel confident, right? Put on cologne, put on perfume, put on cosmetics, you know, whatever helps you bring your A game, you know, to really engage all of your senses. So that's fantastic. And speaking of energy and emotion, you know, video is not static, right? We want to fill this rectangle of space with body language to accentuate what you're saying. Make eye contact. And I'm one of the biggest offenders of this. Our eyes tend to stray, especially in gallery view. We tend to want to look at the person on the screen. So I'm looking down here. If I you know, I'm pretending I'm having gallery view here and seeing my participants. You want to have your eyes, you know, looking through the lens of the camera. You see using your arms. So I have Italian background. I naturally grew up with everybody, you know, using their hands to speak. So that's not a challenge for me. You know, sit up straight, you know, of course, use a smile, you know, that really helps convey energy, and, you know, modulate your voice to, you know, express energy and emotion. I actually yesterday was in a webinar, and the presenter, the voice was just so monotone. You know, it was really putting most of the audience, you know, to sleep and wanting them to, you know, to get distracted by looking at other things and checking their phone. So I just keep that in mind, especially if you're in a, you know, a longer meeting type of setting. And of course, know your technology. We're not asking you to read the 97-page manual about your webcam, but just have, you know, the basic idea and experiment. Check out the software and all the settings that come with your technology. As I mentioned, you know, you want to get the eye line right. We talked about having your camera at a 90-degree angle, and ideally about an arm's length away from you, and never really show any part of the ceiling. As you can see, this gentleman here, you know, he's looking down at us. It almost seems like he's looming over us, where the gentleman on the right, you know, he's looking directly at you. So that really, again, makes a more human, you know, experience virtually. Okay, so let's talk about best practices for both hosts and participants now that we reviewed, you know, getting going. You know, as I just mentioned, test your technology early and often. Your camera, your microphone. Make sure if you're on wireless, make sure, you know, you're connected. What Zoom version do you have? Test your features in advance if you're doing a presentation where you have to share a slide deck. You know, just jump on your meeting even a few minutes early. Just make sure everything's all set up. If you do work offsite and then take meetings in another location, for example, when I take my laptop to a client and I come back and connect it at home, all of my microphone settings change. So I have to make sure, you know, they go to a default. So I have to just make sure that they're set correctly. Practice speaking into the camera. Imagine your audience is inside of the lens, you know, and it's so hard to do. As I mentioned earlier, I do this all the time. Try not to look at the screen, and try to look through your camera. And of course, first impressions matter, and dressing appropriately is a factor. So, get in that right mindset, earn the respect to look professional. If you're in a meeting, and I'm going based on experiences, we've seen it all. I'm sure you have as well over the past 2 years. You don't want somebody showing up to a meeting that's sitting on a couch with a blanket, eating potato chips. And that's what I've seen in executive meetings. And that's not the first impression you want to convey. So very simple. This is pretty much for everyone, whether you're a host or a participant. Now, if you are a host, of course, you want to be prepared. Have a clear agenda. There was a question last week about agendas, and we'll get into this a little bit later on, but generally, for the small screen, you want to make your meetings shorter. So if you happen to have a lengthy agenda, maybe divide that up into 2 or 3 meetings if it's it's that much content, and share that agenda. If you could share it early with your participants, for example, send them an email a couple of days in advance, or, like here in any presentation, we had an agenda at the top of our program about what we are going to cover. Have a backup plan. What happens if the internet goes out? What happens if you're called, there's an emergency and you can't run the meeting? Do you have another team member that can? Don't be so jam-packed in your meetings where there's no time for others to interact. We want to warm up, like today, for example, ask, where are you from? What business are you in? You want to make people feel welcome. You're welcoming them into your space, and work in time for that, chit chat. And of course, we've all been distracted, right? Who hasn't had, another family member come in during a meeting, a pet? I recently conducted a LinkedIn poll, and the biggest distractions were from pets and spouses coming in during the meetings and interrupting meetings. So, there are different techniques that you can do. For example, I work out of a home office. So I have a sign on my office door that I flip, and it says, welcome to come in, when I'm not in a video meeting, or it says I'm in a video meeting, please do not interrupt. So that's really worked out here. So I see Shelly said, but it's funny. Yeah, it depends. I mean, if you're trying to win new business and you have a cattail walking in front of you, it's kind of hard. But and we talked about last week, the number one place for video calls. Does anybody remember what the answer was? The number one place where people take their video calls from. You could go ahead and put that in the chat. Let's see if anybody remembers. In bed. Yes, Olga, you got it. That's right. The bedroom is the number one place. So, look, a lot of people were short on space. I'm using a shared space in my home. So you want to have a professional background. Of course, nobody wants to see you in bed, right? And hopefully you're not in bed with somebody else during that video call. So you want to be work appropriate. Here, we just saw earlier Jamie's natural background where she works in home. But here I'm using, a virtual background. And this is a photograph of the library in my home. So I curated the bookshelf, and that's what I'm using since I'm in a shared space. And it also helps with, privacy and things like that. So Shelly, she used a green screen for the first time last week. Fantastic. I'm happy that helped. I hope it helped you out. If you have any questions about that, let me know. And, for your participants, and this is also for you as well, the phone never rings, right? Except when you're in a meeting. Last week's webinar, when I was on with you all, I never get any calls. And I was like, thank God I remembered to silence my phone. I started getting all these text messages. My phone was, going off, vibrating off the hook here. So if this sounds like you, mute your phone. And if you do still have a landline, I work with others that do, make sure that's, silenced, and turn off notifications. For example, if you're on LinkedIn and you have the LinkedIn tab open, those notifications, especially when you're presenting like I am today, those notifications, that little ding comes through to the rest of your audience if you are sharing your computer sound during screen sharing. For example, if you are sharing video content, the others in your audience will hear any notifications you have going on. Raise your hand to speak. I'm a talker and you always want to get the word in, right? Use the hand or reaction button. So we're in webinar today. You see that raise hand button on the toolbar because I can't see you. But if you are in a general Zoom meeting in gallery view, you can physically raise your hand or use that the raise hand function. I'll show you where that is a little bit later. Again, just like when you're face to face with people, pay attention, give your full attention to somebody. If you are typing in the background or constantly looking down, checking your phone, that really doesn't convey that trust and that seriousness you're looking in terms of trying to get your audience's attention. If you're not paying attention, how are they? How are you expecting them to pay attention to you? So now let's talk about how to make video meetings more human, right? We know there's a difference between shaking somebody's hand in person compared to that virtual handshake and perception in 2 dimensions. How do we bring this warmth, to make these meetings more human? You have to take into account, of course, the shorter attention spans and distractions on the other side. So as I mentioned earlier, reduce your agenda or your meeting length, offer digestible portions. And what's a digestible portion? These are, 10 to 15 minute segments, like these little chunks. So Jamie's great at this. And I'd love to hear, Jamie, how do you engage your audience?
Gina, that's a great question because I completely agree. Staring at a screen, and we have to remember, this may not be your attendees only Zoom meeting. So they may be staring at a screen a lot longer than we are in just presenting our meeting. So taking all of that into consideration and just staring at a camera, I love the idea of breaking up a meeting by offering a break. So for example, I tend to, in my hour-long program, just let everyone know during the welcome message that there will be a break at a certain time, typically about halfway through, so they can almost look forward to that time by knowing they can check their email, return a text message, get up, stretch their legs, refill their drink, get another cup of coffee, visit the restroom, whatever they may need to do. They can look forward to that time, which allows them, I think, to just put aside those distractions and really focus on the presentation part so that they're not trying to multitask and almost sneak in their phone to check a text message because they're not sure they can go a whole hour without doing that. So I love the idea of offering a break. I let everyone know up front the break's coming. Then I'll remind them the break is really coming. Then the break is here. And the break also allows me to take a moment off screen so I can get a sip of water. And it's a perfect time to catch up on chat. So some meetings, presentations have a more lively chat than others, but sometimes there's so many questions pouring in, you might feel like you've missed one and we wouldn't want to overlook a question or a comment. So it gives me a moment to sort of scroll back through chat and just to regroup, rework my notes, get everything in order. And it's a quick little moment that everyone can look forward to. And then they come back, as I do, refreshed and ready to begin the second part of the program. Your attention is refocused. There's a renewed energy for the presentation. So I hope I'm building my case in love of a break. And if it's a longer presentation, I'll do more than one break. So for example, during a lunch and learn, it might be a simple break. If it's a longer presentation, like a workshop, there'll be a few different breaks. And even if it's a very short meeting, I'll just take 2 minutes and say, all right, everybody, let's just check our phones, so that no one feels guilty that they're trying to check their phone on the side and they might get caught. So I love the idea of breaks, Gina, and I think you do as well. Am I right?
Yeah, so we'll talk in a little bit, other ways to take breaks. Also, one of my favorites is using, props to help, add interest and have a toolbox of physical props. For example, I have this fun "you're muted" sign. This is probably the most overused phrase, right, in the past 2 years. So I wanted to add some levity to my programs. And on the other hand, we've also had, those that are on, their mic is on and they're talking and distracting, the rest of the group. So it's the dual purpose, sign. If you love this, you can check out my website later. I have a downloadable craft for you where you can print out and make your own "you're muted" sign. And I also love icebreakers, right? So just to get, warm up the room and get your group going, even if it's a small group, even if you have, a small team with you of employees, such as grab something within an arm's reach. So of course, unfortunately, I can't see you all today to see what you have lying around you. However, I have this here on my desk. Do any of you know what it is? Please go ahead and type in the chat box. Let me know what you think this is, since we can't, verbally communicate together. I'll give you a hint. It has something to do with communication, my profession. Okay, let's see if anybody have any idea what it is. Okay, candy jar. Sorry, Olga. Nope. Right. Microphone. Nope. So this is made out of glass. This is glass. All right, I'm giving it to Matthew. You got it. This is an insulator. It's actually a telegraph pole insulator. And when Samuel Morse invented the telegraph, which has New Jersey roots, and it was the internet of the time, right? So that is a telegraph insulator. Very good. But here, you can see how it gets everybody engaged going on. Shelley, lighthouse, timer. Yeah, I love all these. That's great. So for any of you in the Northeastern area, if you go over to Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania, which is in the Lehigh Valley, you can actually take a train, which was the old anthracite, all the coal export to New York City. They still have the train there, and you can take your bicycle on the train. It hauls you up the Lehigh Valley 25 miles, and then you ride back, and you'll see all of the telegraph poles are still there, and you can see all the insulators on the poles. Generally, telegraph poles were built, next to the rail lines. So a fun little fact for today. So Jamie, what's in your prop toolbox?
Gina, what isn't in my prop toolbox? As a professional organizer and now virtual presenter, just about anything that I can find in my home, I can utilize as a prop, including the book right behind me. So I will often find myself just reaching for it, and I'll read a chapter, a section of a chapter, a little, it's written in checklist format. So reading a chapter isn't that long. There are questions here to figure out what to keep and what to toss when you're organizing. For the lunch and learns and professional programs, clubs and associations, I'll turn usually to the office section. I often get a lot of questions about paperwork, so there's a paperwork chapter. So having the book in the background is a great marketing tool, but it also acts as a prop, and it allows me to fill some of the meeting time by reading from my own work. So I love having a book. Also, photographs. So whether I take a photograph and share on my screen, or I'll ask attendees to send photos in advance, and then I can share my screen. For example, someone may send a photo of their office, and then I can offer advice and show real world ideas of, I would move this here and let's organize this first, and what if you relocated this? So the photos themselves can act as props, whether I share my screen or actually just hold the photo up to the camera. And then, of course, there's so many other things that I love to show. When it comes to home offices, electronics comes to mind, all the cords and cables and adapters that we have for setting up our virtual presentations. So this is a great idea. I just have it handy. And then I can show everyone, if you have these, of course, who doesn't? Maybe we just contain them all in one box. And that way, when you need a different adapter, hopefully you can shop from your own stock. I'll also show that you can label them so that at a glance, you know which one's which. So that's always a fun little task. And what office doesn't include a collection of CDs, DVDs, or books that maybe we're no longer using? So I'm able to show a prop of CDs, DVDs, electronics and things, to let the attendees know that, first of all, if you have electronics to recycle, you can do that for free at Best Buy or Staples stores. They're both collection points for electronics that are no longer functioning, and you don't want to pay to have them removed. In addition, if you were to log on to Declutter, and Declutter is spelled D-E-C-L-U-T-T-R, Declutter, or Ziffit, Z-I-F-F-I-T, Ziffit, Z-I-F-F-I-T. Both of those websites allow you to log in and say what you have: a book, a piece of electronic equipment that does work, a smartwatch because you've upgraded, a new tablet, and they'll tell you how much they'll pay you. And then they pay the shipping to get it. So wonderful resources that I can incorporate my props that then lead to a resource that I want to share. I absolutely love using a timer. So we talked about sort of breaking up a meeting and avoiding that time when you're feeling like, oh, it's just another Zoom presentation. So I use a timer, and I use a timer for a few different ways, but the biggest one is to set a timer for about 3 minutes and invite everyone to stop the program for just a moment, step away, and do a teeny tiny tidy up with me. And so if it was an office presentation, like a lunch and learn, we would just take a moment and clear a section of our desk or maybe a desk drawer. And then, as Gina said, to get everyone involved, you get to come back and show what you found. The oddest thing you found in your desk drawer, or the oldest thing someone found, or the thing that no one knows what it does, and then we can try to figure it out. So lots of different ways to stay interactive, utilizing the props. And I'm a big fan of props, including props for myself. And this is a prop that I have. It says, look here. It's a sticky note. And what I do is just stick the sticky note to the camera lens off to the side as a reminder to look here, because as Gina reminds us, I just imagine my attendees being through that little camera lens and not on the screen. Looking up at the camera is very different than looking down at the screen. It doesn't look like I'm paying attention to you at all. So Gina, I love my props, and I can't wait to make that art and craft sign. I'm going to go to your website and print that out for sure this afternoon.
Great. Thanks for all those fantastic ideas. And Jamie, made a great point about the use of photos. I actually have a travel program. I work a lot with older adults, and I have one later this afternoon. We're talking about the Amazon, and I invite participants from the group to send me their photos in advance, or they can just hold them up to the screen, whichever is easier for them, and talk about their experiences. So again, another way to incorporate your audience. So I want to hear from you in the chat box. Do you think video meeting fatigue is a myth or a reality? Let us know. Let's see here. Are you done with virtual, or, you're thinking, all right, this is going to keep going. Total reality. All right. Okay. So I think the consensus here is reality. All right. Fatigued, but convenient. Okay. So that's a great point, Dan. My recent LinkedIn poll, convenience, it was at the top of the list for virtual, especially for, business owners like yourselves, where you don't have to travel to go see your clients, right? And then you can also, it makes you more productive, right? Because you don't have that commute time. We all find ourselves, whether you're an employer or employee, working more, right? So, of course, anything you do too much of can be exhausting, right? I mean, whether it's video meetings or binge watching Netflix, we all need a break, and like Jamie's mentioning with props, where she sets a timer and has her audience take a break. Our brain is not designed to focus for large blocks of time. And it, of course, it's even more challenging in 2 dimensions. You got phones, things, all sorts of things going on in the background. People can browse the internet, while they're on a meeting with you. So it's really hard to get that undivided attention. So what you can physically do is take a stretch break, right? Whether you're a host or a participant, work in time, sitting where you are, just like in yoga, if any of you practice yoga, take a deep breath, raise your hands, and exhale as you lower them, and just, it actually, signals your brain to just start again and refresh, so it's again, working in this time, not having such a tight agenda where you're just going, and you lose your audience's attention or your employees' attention, right? Another way to get participants engaged and valued is to assign them roles, even if you have a smaller meeting. Here are some examples that I put up here for key roles for your video conferences. Co-host is like my number one, right? You never know what can happen. It's a backup for the host. It also helps you as a host, for example, in Zoom, where you have a waiting room. It's hard to conduct the meeting, and let's say participants are coming in late, to keep switching your eyes and your attention over to, I have to let participants in from the waiting room. And also, co-host helps with housekeeping functions. For example, we've all been in meetings where participants are unintentionally unmuted. So a co-host can be the one to just make sure that you got that mute all button pressed and everything's good to go. Depending on your use for your content, right? You can have a tech specialist to record footage. This is also good, for example, if you're in the accounting profession, where you have to keep record keeping for clients, or the legal profession, to record your content. And also, if you find yourself, I saw earlier we had somebody in video production. If you are streaming your content, let's say your client, you want to show them a rough draft of reel of what you've created, let's say you're in a larger meeting, to go ahead and handle the streaming operations there. Having a moderator. Today we have Chris. He's a wonderful moderator. He handled the introductions, and he's also monitoring the Q&A for those that are putting questions in. So that's nice to have. And also keep track of questions. Let's say we don't get to everything, later on, he could reach out and say, we had these outstanding questions. And you can also have a chat monitor, even if you're in a casual meeting, like a book club, right? A chat monitor is great to type in resources, book titles, and other roles, for example, can be a transcriber. Again, that's great for the accounting and legal professions, where you need to keep track of, your client communications for the record. Now, Zoom offers many digital options for engagement. So we just talked about physical, props, and now let's talk about digital for a little bit. Polls, of course, are a great way to learn about your audience or your clients. For example, if you're in real estate and you have a potential, open house with clients, you might want to know what's most important to them when they're looking for a new home. Is it the schools? Is it property size? Is it amenities for the community? That's a great way to learn about your clients. If you're a life coach, executive coach, what's important or what's a challenge to your clients. So here's an example of how Jamie would use a poll with her clients. So the question is, how organized do you feel your workspace is? So let's go ahead and take a minute to answer this poll. Okay, we'll give it another second here. Okay. All right, Jamie, what do you think about our group here?
I love it. It needs a little work. 74% of our attendees. So the question was, How organized do you feel your workspace is? And we've got 17% coming in at great, which is fantastic. And 74% at needs a little work. And I think that's pretty much an average, what we would expect. And almost 10% of us are buried in papers. And I think that is absolutely true. A lot of us may have a paper pile that looks a little something like this. And we don't want that sitting in the background of Zoom. So if anyone has sort of cleared their Zoom background by grabbing maybe a brown shopping bag and hiding all the clutter inside, that's a challenge, right? Because now we have a backlog of stuff to go through. And for us as business owners, that could include receipts and important documents and contracts, client files, and the catalog. The catalogs that just keep coming because maybe you ordered one thing through a catalog and then that catalog company sold your information and now you're receiving so many catalogs. So if that happens to be the case, and one of the reasons your office needs just a little work is that you're trying to pare down catalogs, you can do that for free at catalogchoice.org. Catalog choice, like you're choosing which catalogs you no longer want, catalogchoice.org. They're branching out into other types of mail as well, and they're rebranding themselves. But even when the catalog says if you don't order, it will be your last catalog, I think we all know it's never our last catalog. So again, here, through the use of a very easy prop that arrived in my mailbox, I'm able to engage us because we're probably all going, yes, I get a catalog that I don't want. So you can log on to catalogchoice.org. You're going to make an account, but for free. There's an alphabetized list of all the catalogs, and you can ask to be removed from whichever ones you want. This company's sole goal is to stop the wasteful printing of paper that no one wants. So that's where we begin. If we're trying to just get a handle on a couple of things, a lot of times our office needs to function for more than one item. Maybe your task is the office, but then it's also, it could be a bedroom, could be an art and craft space, could be part schoolroom, could be part kitchen table. So if you have that multi-function surface that's also supposed to be your office, I'm going to share with you a little secret. So here we go. Right behind my book is a shoebox, and that's what is holding my orchid plant. So this may look like just a normal plant stand to you, but it's actually a shoebox, and it is what I like to call my office in a box. So to set up to join you for a virtual presentation, you know, there's a microphone with cords and cables, there's lighting, there's a lot that goes in. There's also a checklist that I wrote out as a reminder of do this, do that. And through Gina's wonderful presentations, you're probably already creating a little checklist. Plus now you're going to have Gina's "you're on mute" and "please mute" sign. So all of that goes into my office in a box. So it allows me to feel like I'm starting work by opening up my office, otherwise known as my box, bring everything out of the shoebox, set up, then take everything down and put it away. It's easily accessible, so it's right there. I don't have to go anywhere to get it, but the things aren't left out. When things are left out, well, of course, number one, it looks cluttered. Number two, they can get lost or broken or damaged. And then it always feels like we're working. By putting it away in a box and closing the lid, it feels like, okay, my work is done for now, or my work day is complete. So I love an office in a box. It's one of the things that I started using very early on as I transitioned my business into virtual. And I know we're going to be able to talk more about that next week, but so exciting with the office in a box. Of course, I'll also do a supply box. So if I was in a traditional office setting, I would probably have a supply closet. I don't have a supply closet, and I don't have a closet that I can give up for supplies. So what I do is just have a secondary box, and that's where I have my printer ink and all the extra things that I need, so that if I need an extra roll of tape or another pair of scissors or more pens, I can just go ahead and grab it from my supply box. And finally, I think a lot of us may have receipts and other paperwork. And of course, we already decided that shoving it in the bag and putting it to the side is not the best option. So I do a desktop file box. So everything I'm sharing with you is available in more detail at jamienovak.com. So just able to share a little snapshot with you. And of course, this is the desktop file box. It holds hanging file folders. And Gina loves this idea, I think, for putting receipts into one file, and then maybe tax documents. You could have client folders. And for those of you that are taking notes during our presentation, may I ask where you're putting the notes? And if the notes are destined to land in a pile, never to be seen again, you could have notes right here. So as you join all these wonderful programs, you'll have all your notes handy. So using hanging file folders in a desktop box avoids putting things in a filing cabinet out of sight, out of mind. So everything's right there within arm's reach. And it's mobile. So Gina, you could take that box to another room or to the office or to a client, and you'd have everything that you needed.
Yeah, that's a great tip, Jamie. And we mentioned, last week, for those of you, for example, if you're in a retail location, but you need to take a virtual meeting, if you have a stock room, maybe dedicate a little corner of that stock room. And, the tips that Jamie mentioned, for example, having office in a box or supplies in a box, if you don't have that, dedicated office space that you can quickly set up, take that meeting, and then come back out to your storefront, and continue conducting business. Just so I see our time is going by so quickly this afternoon. If you would like to create your own polls in Zoom meeting, on your toolbar, you can see here circled in red the bar graph icon, and that's where you could go ahead and set up your poll questions. It's a fairly easy process. And if you happen to be in larger meetings, you can create breakout rooms. Now, I don't have time to go into this with you this afternoon, but it's also circled here in red. And I have a screenshot of what it looks like to set up a breakout room. It is the icon. It's a square that's divided in quarters. And you can do this either when you initially set up your Zoom meeting and already have a roster of participants. You can set up your pre-breakout rooms, or while you're in meeting, you can either allow Zoom to just, let's say you have 50 participants, put 25 in one and 25 in another room, or again, you can manually select which participants you'd like to go in a breakout room. These are great options. For example, in your business, let's say you were planning next year and you're looking at different avenues for client development. Let's say, you could put different teams for different topics in the different rooms, and then you come together after your brainstorming sessions. It's another way to really kind of create a personal work and conversation space. So I mentioned earlier about the raise hand feature. You see it on your end with webinar, but reactions are a fun way to express, nonverbal emotions. And you find that on your Zoom meeting toolbar, the reactions, it's the smiley emoji circled here in red. And when you select that, it opens up a menu where you can access symbols. And then also that's where you'd find in Zoom meeting the raise hand feature. Okay, to allow, let the host know that you have a question, and it brings your name up to the top of the participant list from the host side, so that I would know, okay, let me get to Jamie right now. So thank you for that. Additionally, I love, the reactions, because you can do, quizzes and fun things like that. If you're short on time. There's other interactive features on your platform. Here, an example, I added 3D glasses using Zoom's filter feature. And you find this on your desktop Zoom app when you open it up and select backgrounds and filters. This is the option after virtual backgrounds. There are these filters. Just keep in mind, I'm sure you saw, I think it was a year ago already, the video of the attorney that had a cat head filter on and he was in court. Keep in mind your part, who your audience is, and don't forget to take the filter off for your next meeting. Again, you could also have a quiz using gestures such as the check marks and the X's I showed you earlier. So that's a lot of fun. All right, so we covered a lot of information today. Here's a checklist to keep in mind for involving your stakeholders in successful meetings. We reviewed how your assets, that's your appearance, your staging and styling, your energy, and technology are core, right, to every meeting, whether you're in person or virtual. Enlist best practices, whether you're the host or the participant. Think for the small screen, think virtual first, shorten your content. Less is more as attention spans are reduced. Take a break. Jamie gave some fantastic examples how she gives her audience a break using her timer. Leave time for the chit chat, the fun features. Grab something on your desk and show us. Assign roles to your participants, even if it's or your team or employees, even if it's small. Just to give you a break as a host and help you pay more attention to your participants. And then, use the interactive features such as polls, such as breakout rooms. And of course, have fun, and personalize your meetings. So our next session will be next Thursday. I can't believe March the 3rd. We're ending February already. And here we're going to tie everything together, how to set up your office, what technology you should consider to look and sound your best. And again, I don't want to break the bank, so I always look for things that are dual purpose. So we'll talk about that. And of course, you'll get an equipment checklist designed for small business owners, just like yourselves, to project professionalism for every client and employee experience. And we'll hear how Jamie successfully transformed her in-person New Jersey-based organizing business to virtually around the world. And of course, if you'd like to make your own mute sign here, I have a printable project on my website. I'll go ahead and share the link in the chat. So again, it was wonderful to see you all this afternoon for our second Lunch and Learn in the series. And we'd love to hear what your questions are. Thank you.
Awesome. So yeah, let's go ahead and check any questions that we have. We do have about 2 minutes, so we could take maybe 2 questions. So I see here, let's see, what size was the web around and color that you use, and did you need to change your chair to make it work?
Okay, great question. So the web around, it's 52 inches wide and it's green. Generally, when you're looking at green screens, they're either green or blue to pick up the chroma key. That's what it's just like when you see the weather report on the news. And I don't have a special chair. Next week, we'll resurrect my office, the pictures that I showed last week, and you'll see my office chair. It's a standard office chair with a back on it to strap the web around on. If you have a specific issue, feel free to email me. I'll try to help you out, or we could do a Zoom and we can set it up over Zoom.
Awesome. Malcolm asks, do you recommend other virtual backgrounds that look more real without the ghosting?
So again, I do not recommend a virtual background without a green screen. Okay, that's the problem. When you don't have a green screen, your camera it's a depth issue, right? Similarly, if you've seen Zoom's blur feature, right? They recently added that a few months back. That's a challenge as well because you can't pick up that depth of field. So here behind me is a virtual background. This is a photograph that I'm using of my home library. So, but I'm using a green screen. So that's why, like my crazy hair, you're not seeing it disappear, or I'm using my hands, like we talked about body language, you're not seeing my hands, fade in and out.
Awesome. So I believe, so it's 1 p.m. So I think for the rest of the questions, I'll ask everyone to send you guys over an email. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's great. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No worries. I was just about to mention that you put it into the chat.
Yeah. So in the chat, I put a link to resources. You could get the downloadable to print out your own sign, and then also email addresses. Feel free to reach out, and then we'll see you all next week.
Awesome. So for the rest of the audience, I'd like to let you know that next week again, on Thursday, we have the third and final part of the Entrepreneur's Guide to Success on Zoom. And it's going to be about presentation skills and a tech checklist. So to register for that, go ahead and point your smartphone or camera phone to that little code on the right. You don't have to take a picture. A link should pop up as soon as you hover over it. Click on the link and you'll get to the page where you can register for this event. That being said, we're the NJSBDC. We've helped over 13,000 plus small businesses. We have no cost small business consulting, training and events starting at $0, and exclusive small business resources. To get started, go ahead and register at njsbdc.com/request-counseling. Thank you again, Gina and Jamie. I'll see everyone next week.
Thank you. Nice to see everyone today. Take care.
So long.
Bye, everyone.